Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to present at this year's Policing and Security Futures Conference. My name is Dan Strain, and the topic of my conversation today is the future challenges of the organised crime environment. I'll be describing what the future of organised crime will look like, the implications for policing and security, and explain how police can evolve to meet these challenges. To predict the future challenges of organised crime, it will be helpful to first establish what it is. Despite the enduring image of the mafia as the stereotypical depiction of organised crime, there is in fact no universally agreed upon definition. However, the UN Convention Against Transnational Organised Crime defines an organised criminal group as a structured group of three or more persons existing for a period of time and acting in concert with the aim of committing one or more serious crimes or offences in order to obtain directly or indirectly a financial or other material benefit. Economic incentives are the primary drivers of the involvement of organised crime groups in illicit activities. Organised crime has a turnover of $1 trillion and presents a global and economic security risk second only to Islamic terrorism. Organised crime activities exist to serve demands for a product or service rendered illicit by the state. Organised crime groups control between 90 to 100% of the illicit drug market in Australia. Whilst drug trafficking and production is the leading global contributor to organised crime, illicit activities have become more diversified and globalised to encompass human trafficking, firearm trafficking, organised property crime, corruption, fraud, cybercrime, wildlife trafficking, sports corruption, migrant smuggling, counterfeiting, illicit waste trafficking, and illicit property crime. So what does the future organised crime landscape look like? Transnational organised crime on a large scale will become the new reality, as groups operate in multiple countries. The operation of organised crime across domestic and international borders will generate significant challenges of coordination in relation to cross-border investigation, evidence gathering, and information exchange. The COVID pandemic is likely to expedite organised crime's expansion into other criminal enterprises as groups adapt to operating without the need for physical activity or the need to cross borders physically. This expansion will mean groups become more resilient, making it more difficult for police to disrupt or dismantle such groups. Traditional activities such as illicit drug trafficking, money laundering, and fraud will continue into the future. However, the size and scale of these activities are likely to increase as geographical boundaries no longer confine the threat, as technology enables crimes to transcend international borders with increasing regularity. Organised crime groups are likely to diversify their goods and service offerings. Electronic data will become a valuable commodity. Data obtained via cybercrime such as hacking may be used to facilitate identity theft, ransom multinational corporations, or corruption of individuals in key public sector roles. Technology and the internet will be used to expand the speed and reach of organised crime across borders without the need for physical presence. Planning and executing illicit activities will involve encrypted communication, providing significant barriers to police investigation. A shift of organised crime products and services to the darknet will facilitate expansion in these illicit markets as consumers are attracted to the convenience of an online shopping acquisition of illicit products and services. There will be a shift away from traditional cash to the use of cryptocurrency to launder proceeds of crime. Organised crime will pose an increased risk of corruption in both public and private sectors, and there will be increasing convergence between terrorism and organised crime to generate funding for illicit activities. For example, the trafficking of drugs in one jurisdiction to raise funds to purchase weapons in another. Despite recent responses, the prevalence of organised crime is increasing. For example, 16.5 tonnes of illicit drugs with a street value of $12.4 billion were consumed nationally within Australia in 2023, representing a 17% increase from the previous year. In 2021, the Australian Institute of Criminology estimated that organised crime cost the Australian economy $60 billion annually, a 62% increase since 2017. The collective police response to organised crime in Australia costs $16.4 billion annually. In 2023, Australia recorded a net migration gain of 518,000 people, an annual population growth of 2.5%. Whilst the population has increased, police agencies across Australia are struggling with recruiting officers and retaining existing staff. The Queensland Police Service attrition rates have doubled from 2.8 to 5.6%. The replacement of new police recruits cannot offset the loss of experienced officers equally because the effectiveness and efficiency of service declines due to inexperience. The QPS has experienced a 48% increase in calls for service and a 10% overall increase in crime between 2015 and 2019, illustrating the growing and unsustainable demand for police services in Australia. There's been a significant increase in digital evidence. Police collect large volumes of digital evidence using slow and cumbersome methods to analyse and generate intelligence directions. The UK Police Foundation suggests police are data-rich but insight-poor. They possess a huge amount of information from which to draw, but lack the context to interpret what it means. There is a deficit in technology capabilities and skills training to manage this increasing volume of digital evidence. The QPS, for example, has no AI-enabled tools to assist or augment the analysis of CCTV, social media, and other electronic data, which is manually performed. This is not a sustainable practice given the outlook for the future. Many agencies do not have a cryptocurrency wallet, meaning there's no method of securely seizing cryptocurrency, resulting in loss of evidence and the ability to restrain proceeds of crime. Organised crime offences are complex to investigate. New public management continues to influence the policing of organised crime as agencies prioritise arrests and seizures as outputs over meaningful outcomes in terms of community safety. There is less appetite to invest resources into protracted and complex crime investigations, particularly in the context of other competing demands. Prevention and disruption strategies remain underutilised as they are difficult to measure outcomes, whilst there remains a low uptake of proceeds of crime investigations due to the lack of organisational capability. Current mutual legal assistance arrangements are generally slow and cumbersome and unable to match the rapid pace and technological sophistication at which organised crime groups operate. In Australia, there is no agreed national protocol to provide a structured, consistent framework around multi-jurisdictional organised crime investigations. Without established protocols, interagency cooperation is approached ad hoc, which lacks accountability. Major decisions can be influenced by parochialism, resulting in unilateral responses to what is an issue that must be addressed collectively. Multi-agency performance management remains problematic because each agency generally focuses on its own outcomes at the expense of the collective task force. Without articulated governance for multi-agency work, there is a potential for conflict around local, national and international priorities. When we assess the increase in organised crime activity, increased demand for police services, population growth, recruiting and retention issues, and the lack of capacity and capability of agencies to manage organised crime, it is clear that police agencies will struggle to manage the future complexity of organised crime. So what are the implications of the future organised crime environment? The scale and complexity of organised crime will place further demand on already stretched resources. Demand is likely to exceed the capability and the capacity of single police agencies. In the post-COVID environment, staff retention and recruiting issues constrict resources while demand for police services increases. Recession and economic uncertainty suggest austerity measures will be on the horizon. Given this outlook, the efficient, effective and economical use of limited police resources is crucial to meeting the complex demands of multi-jurisdictional organised crime. There is the potential that multi-jurisdictional harms will be given less focus, exacerbating the growth of organised crime. There is critical need to improve digital skills across all police organisations as the volume of digital evidence to be collected, stored and analysed from phones, computers and social media accounts will exceed current and future capability and capacity. Inadequate digital evidence training will contribute to longer investigations, inconsistent practices, and missed evidentiary and intelligence opportunities. Digital evidence across multiple jurisdictions raises the issues of interoperability and data sharing with external stakeholders. We need to develop technology to share digital evidence securely with our stakeholders. Adopting new strategies and technology will likely be met with changing social and political expectations, requiring new forms of governance and accountability. Failure to adapt will likely lead to increased organised crime activity impacting political and economic stability. Increased corruption may deter foreign investment in Australia, further inhibiting economic growth. The Australian Institute of Criminology estimates corruption increases the cost of doing business in Australia by 10%. The community bears these costs in terms of increased costs of goods and services, contributing to potential economic recession. Failure to adapt to these future challenges will lead to a less effective police service. A less effective police is likely to be less trusted by the public, potentially damaging police legitimacy. Police cannot neglect investigations because the offenders are located in another jurisdiction, be that across domestic or international borders, without raising issues of legitimacy. The challenge of prioritising harm caused by an organised crime group over a local crime issue may cause community frustrations with police because of the remote and invisible nature of organised crime over a highly visible series of localised burglaries, for example. The community may misunderstand the prioritisation of harm and appropriate allocation of resources, potentially causing a loss of legitimacy. The strategic and operational reality is that policing revolves around the prioritisation of resources. From an accountability perspective, police need to be explicit rather than implicit in communicating why such strategic and operational decisions are made. So how can police evolve to meet these challenges? Organised crime cannot be adequately addressed by a single agency applying a unilateral response. Globalisation has challenged the capability of police to maintain the security of its citizens from organised crime. Addressing these future challenges requires pluralised service delivery where multiple agencies work collaboratively. This collaborative approach can be facilitated by formal legal instruments or a networking approach, providing the flexibility to adapt to time-critical investigations where required. Australian policing agencies should develop an agreed-upon national protocol that provides a structured, consistent framework to encourage and guide multi-jurisdictional organised crime investigations. This protocol will assist in resolving the current ad hoc approach between domestic agencies and expedite the flow of information and cooperation between states. This protocol should establish multi-agency accountability mechanisms to address the issues of pooled accountability. International policing cooperation challenges police agencies with cultural and linguistic barriers inhibiting the effectiveness of cooperative agreements. To respond effectively to these challenges, police agencies must develop organisational capacity by enhancing internal diversity and cultural awareness to work in cross-cultural spheres. These approaches may enhance relationships between police and cultural communities and extend into the international sphere. By developing cultural knowledge, linguistic skills and cultural networks, domestic police agencies may equip themselves with the capacity to work in the international sphere. As organised crime harnesses new and emerging forms of technology to facilitate crime, existing legislation will fail to keep pace with these technological advances. Police will need to secure social and political support to establish and amend new and existing legislation to ensure that they are equipped with the power to investigate and prosecute organised crime groups operating within this future environment. Police must invest in new technology and training. Capabilities to store, share, and analyse data will enhance operational effectiveness and efficiency. However, police must be mindful of maintaining their legitimacy whilst navigating this future environment to ensure that they balance the delicate equilibrium between safeguarding the community and upholding their privacy. Future planning should identify gaps in capabilities and capacity to guide the development of sustainable relationships with the private sector where these gaps may exist. The future organised crime environment will be driven by technology, requiring police to partner with the private sector to leverage relevant technical skills and resources. To achieve this, police should identify key security, financial and technical experts in the private sector and develop protocol agreements that enable agencies to call in expertise as required and share information. This can be as an outsourced service or direct incorporation into real-time police operations. A recent MOU signed between an Australian bank and the Queensland Police Service enables the rapid sharing of information without the need for a search warrant, allowing the QPS to incorporate banking technologies and capabilities at an early stage in the investigation, including banking experts being directly embedded in organised crime investigations. This is an excellent example of how partnership policing with private sector industries may operate in the future. Police must strengthen community engagement and develop key domestic stakeholder networks in sectors vulnerable to organised crime to enhance the resistance of these communities and vulnerable sectors to organised crime and increase the likelihood of crime being reported. Police must improve proceeds of crime enforcement to prevent proceeds of crime from being invested in other enterprises and market sectors to prevent the growth of organised crime groups. Taking effective measures to combat money laundering is crucial in restricting groups' capacity to conceal their illicit activities, minimise their penetration through corruption, and limit their investment adaptability in response to government interdiction. Implementing negative security vetting of police recruits to identify vulnerabilities that might be exploited by groups seeking to corrupt police officers can also improve resilience to potential corruption by organised crime groups. The prevention and disruption of high and remote harm will be central to the police mission in the future. The ability to prevent crime supports future policing demands. A UK study found that disruption strategies on organised crime groups achieved a 66% reduction in offending over a 15-month period. However, this success was short-term. As such, disruption strategies are unlikely to be a panacea for well-resourced and resilient groups. The application of data analytics, AI predictive modelling, and risk assessment tools can assist police in predicting emerging threats and enhance decision-making regarding strategic responses to these threats. These analytical tools may also assist in identifying vulnerabilities in established and resilient organised crime groups to shape police responses while enhancing the effectiveness of those responses. To promote the uplift of prevention and disruption strategies, police should reframe their mission statements and strategic objectives to include prevention and disruption as a core policing function. Developing a preventative harm index that measures the socio-economic impact of each crime may provide outcome data which could be used to measure the success of each prevention and disruption activity, encouraging a broader uplift of the strategy and generating public and political support. Prevention and disruption strategies should be incorporated into performance management as what gets measured gets done. Performance management is essential in this regard as it is used to support evidence of legitimacy and secure further funding. Collaboration and partnership policing objectives may also be incorporated into performance management as an incentive to make these collaborations sustainable and prosperous. The future challenges of organised crime cannot be addressed by a single agency or increased police budgets and resources. However, by applying innovation, investing in technology, establishing adaptable legislative framework, fostering cooperation between public and private sectors, building organisational diversity, and strengthening community engagement, police will be well positioned to respond to the future challenges of organised crime.